This week on For the Record.
Being on the state Supreme Court, I have an opportunity to address issues and matters that are of statewide importance, not just locally.
A second candidate enters the race for the open Wisconsin Supreme Court seat. We sit down with Judge Maria Lazar 2 weeks into her campaign. And later, the government shutdown continues. We speak with Wisconsin's lawmakers in Washington about how long it could go on for.
What we're seeing is Democrats in the United States Senate putting politics in front of people. It's beyond frustrating.
I think that's going to be up to the Republican leadership. So right now, their track record on truthfulness isn't so good.
That's all coming up this morning.
We now present For the Record.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Ellie La Liberté. Just 3 months ago, Wisconsinites chose who they wanted to fill a seat on the state's highest court. And in April of 2026, they'll do it once again. 2 candidates are vying for that seat right now. Before we get into that, let's look at why this race is such a big deal. Last spring, spending for the Wisconsin Supreme Court was roughly $100 million, according to the Brennan Center for Law. It's the most expensive judicial race in U.S. history. To put that into perspective, spending in the 2025 race alone amounted to how much was spent on 68 Supreme Court elections across 26 states in 2021 and 2022 combined. We even saw the likes of Elon Musk and George Soros pouring cash into the race. But why was it important enough to get their attention? Well, it was the deciding factor in who would have the ideological majority of the court. And Democratic-backed Susan Crawford's victory over Republican-backed Brad Schimmel was a big deal for Democrats after the November loss in the presidential election. And while the state Supreme Court is technically a nonpartisan race, it's become increasingly political in recent years. Liberal candidates have won 4 of the past 5 Supreme Court races. And even if liberals lose the April election, they will still hold the majority through at least 2028. So far in the 2026 race, we have candidates from both sides of the ideological spectrum running. Justice Chris Taylor is deemed the liberal. She currently serves on District 4 Court in the Court of Appeals in Madison and previously served in the state assembly as a Democrat. And the newest candidate, Justice Maria Lazar, is deemed the conservative. Lazar is currently on the Wisconsin Court of Appeals in District 2 and previously worked as an assistant attorney general during former Governor Scott Walker's administration. Lazar's announcement for the seat came after conservative Justice Rebecca Bradley announced she would not seek re-election on the Supreme Court. We sat down with Lazar this week and asked her how much money she needs to raise to be competitive.
That's an interesting question. We just got into this race. I think I always look at my watch. It's 15 days now, so I'm not sure where it's going to stand and where the money would have to be. But the question is not so much as the money you need to raise to run this race. The question is how you need to reach everyone in the state.
So is there a dollar amount that you are looking at right now?
I have nothing. You'd have to actually talk to my people about what they're thinking. I can tell you that I don't think in any way, shape, or form whatsoever that we're going to hit the numbers they hit last year.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about that too because we saw Elon Musk, for example, pouring in a lot of money. So if you were to look to campaign and raise money, where would that come from for you?
Where am I looking to fundraise?
Yes.
One, again, judges we don't ask for money, that we're not ethically allowed to do that. The areas where we fundraise are people who look at my website, hear me speak, who think that they respect my intention to bring integrity back to this court, and those individuals will hopefully donate to their time or their money or their assistance to move me forward and put me into the position where I can be on the state Supreme Court.
Now, we also asked Lazar what her first pitch to voters is.
I think it's really important that we stop the races that have been happening in the state of Wisconsin, where we're turning our judicial races, which are nonpartisan, into political races, and we're looking to put politicians or legislators on that court. I have always been independent. I've always been a judge who's actually looked at the rules, looked at the laws, looked at the facts, and looked at everything like that.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, Lazar previously worked as an assistant attorney general to Attorney General J.B. Van Hollen in former Republican Governor Scott Walker's administration. In 2011, Walker signed Wisconsin Act 10 into law, essentially ending collective bargaining for most public employees. The decision led to an eruption of protests, and during our interview, we asked Lazar about the role she played when Act 10 was challenged. You were previously Assistant Attorney General to former Governor Scott Walker.
Well, actually, I was an Assistant Attorney General. It was not for Scott Walker. I was under J.B. Van Hollen and then Brad Schimmel. But go on.
Well, you defended Act 10 in court.
I defended part of Act 10 in court. But what's the question?
Well, a circuit court judge ruled in December that the law is unconstitutional, but put a hold pending an appeal. Now, if this were to make its way back to the Supreme Court, would you recuse yourself from that decision?
No, and I'll explain why. So when I was working for the Attorney General's office as an Assistant Attorney General, one of many of them, about over 150, we were not allowed to take cases that impacted our benefits as state employees. There was one Assistant Attorney General who was not in the union that we all had to join, and he was the one who did that. So the Act 10 case that I worked on was just specifically, was this law, any law, was this law properly passed by the legislature and enacted into a law by Secretary La Follette? And that was the only question I dealt with. After my case, when the state Supreme Court said yes, it was properly published, it was properly put forward, then they started going to the merits of Act 10. I had nothing whatsoever to do with any case that involved the merits of Act 10. So there's no reason that I would see at this point in time that I would have to recuse. Now, obviously, if the case comes up and I see that there are people who, if it's someone I know who's involved as a party, then I'd have to have another look at that. But as of right now, as to the merits, I have no basis to recuse.
Now, Lazar served as lead counsel for the initial lawsuits filed over Act 10. That's according to her own press release that announced her candidacy for the Court of Appeals in 2021. Now, in response to Lazar's campaign announcement, Judge Chris Taylor's campaign manager released this statement, reading in part, quote, "If elected, Maria Lazar would be the most extreme member of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. It's no surprise that she's backed by the same right-wing billionaires who tried unsuccessfully to buy a seat on our Supreme Court last April, which Wisconsinites overwhelmingly rejected." Can I get your response to that? I can see you smiling a little bit now.
So, well, first I'd say extreme member, I'm assuming they're saying on the conservative side. Well, when you have only 3 members that are on that side, and you have one who kind of flips back and forth occasionally, obviously I would be more to the other side of that individual. And I don't know if Justice Ziegler, former Chief Justice Ziegler, now Justice Ziegler, and I don't know if our philosophies align, so we may actually be on the same course, so I don't know that I would be the most extreme. And I'm assuming you're saying extreme right, which they're leaving out, because maybe I could say who's the most extreme left on that court.
Now, there's much more to that conversation with Judge Lazar. You can find our full conversation on channel3000.com. The election is April 7th. If any other candidates join the race, however, there will be a primary on February 17th. And now to the governor's race. Former Wisconsin Democratic Party Chair Ben Wickler released a statement Thursday announcing he will not be running. Wickler was considered a contender after choosing to leave his role as the head of Wis Dems. His statement reads in part, quote, "Our goal must be not just to win the governor's race, but also to flip the state assembly and the state senate majorities. Then we will finally pass the hugely popular, urgently needed laws that would make Wisconsin work for regular people." And next on For the Record, the latest from Washington as the government shutdown continues. We speak to lawmakers representing Wisconsin from both sides of the aisle.